I came across some guys' rules. 7 of them, in fact, but they are not numbered 1 to 7 like you'd have a priority list. The guys who use these rules say that they are all number 1. Yeah. Sports. It's like the full moon or the changing of the tides. Just let it be. Shopping is not a sport, and no, we are never going to think of it that way. Ask for what you want. Let us be clear on this one. Subtle hints do not work. Strong hints do not work. Obvious hints do not work. Just say it. Come to us with a problem only if you want help solving it. That's what we do. Sympathy is what your girlfriends are for. Anything we said 6 months ago is inadmissible in an argument. In fact, all comments become null and void after 7 days. If something we said can be interpreted 2 ways, and one of those ways makes you sad or angry, we meant it the other way. Christopher Columbus did not need directions, and neither do we. And I am in shape. Round is a shape. And we laugh at some of these, not because they're just so ridiculous over the top and no one would ever say them, but because some of us are thinking of somebody right now who has said stuff like this. It's pretty close to reality for some guys. And it's not just about guys, women as well too. And it's not just in married relationships. It comes back to our nature, what we're born with, who we are inside. We are takers and not givers. We are takers. It's about me. Understand me. Work with me. Leave me alone. We're selfish. We're not sacrificers. But what I need to say is that it can change. There is hope. There is hope not just in marriage relationships, but in your own life personally and in all of your relationships. And the hope is there because of Jesus. Jesus can make it change. But talking about marriage relationships, we're talking about something that is very special, that is different than other kind of relationships. It's more than just a friendship. Though I've seen the marriages, some marriages are like, we're friends, or we're partners, or she's the maid and I'm the boss. But whatever the relationship they think it is, that's not what marriage is supposed to be. I want to start right at a beginning principle, and I'm going to look at this from a couple ways, but I'm going to start with this beginning principle before we really get to answer, I want to know what love is. And it's a simple principle. Let me state it this way. If you are married, your me has changed. Your me is no longer the me that you had before marriage. Now, for some people, this is kind of a shock. What do you mean I'm not who I was before? Well, you're not. And whether you're really living like it or not, the change or not, the fact is that when you're married, it's like a pilot light has been lit. And you can't hang on to who you were anymore. Let me put it another way in terms of an equation. 1 + 1 = 1. That's what I mean in describing the change, that the me that you were is not the me that you are anymore in a marriage. There's a new relationship, a new identity. God describes it this way through the Apostle Paul in Ephesians 5:28. In this same way, husbands ought to love their wives as their own bodies. He who loves his wife loves himself. After all, no one ever hated their own body, but they feed and care for their body just as Christ does the church, for we are members of his body. Paul's repeating again the command to the husbands, the instruction, a must, an absolute imperative. Love your wife. Because you're supposed to take the lead in this relationship. You say, how? What does it look like? Did you hear what he said? It looks like this. It looks like your love, your concern for your own body. The way you love yourself. Now you say, wait a minute here. Explain that. Because you see, the marriage of a man and a woman is parallel to Christ's love, and you say, I can never love like that. But wait a minute here. Stop and think about it. Jesus changed. If you are a believer in Jesus, He has changed every relationship of yours, hasn't He? Because He's given you a new life, and with that new life is a new attitude. In fact, it's His life with His attitude. And His attitude is more concerned for others than for yourself. And so that should be true of all of our relationships, and even more so in a very special way in a marriage relationship, because it's like His relationship with the believers, the church, that we are set apart to Him from all others. We belong only and solely to Him in a union that is so real that in fact He says, Jesus says, describes it as, you are my body, you are a part of me. And that is how marriages are to be as well. You're going to find as we go through today that in the end we discover that what marriage is to be is what Jesus and us already are. Whether we think it or not, whether we feel it or not from Jesus, the things that comprise His heart, His character, who He is, are the very things that are what makes a marriage work. But describing a very simple principle, first off, we need to get this. As our own bodies. As much as you love your own body, it could be seen. And maybe you're saying, I don't love myself. I don't love myself at all. There's so much that I hate about me. And so how can I love my wife as I love myself? Boy, she's in for it now. And the wife might be thinking the same thing of herself. I don't like myself. I don't love myself. How am I supposed to love my husband? You know, the truth is, really, stop and think about it. What we say is, I don't love myself, we really mean, I don't like myself. There are things about me you say, I don't like the way I look, I don't like the way I interact with people, I don't like my personality, I don't like the fact that I'm losing my hearing or my sight. That doesn't mean that you hate yourself. If you hated yourself, you'd want to get rid of yourself. But instead, you're trying to correct things. You're trying to get hearing aids and glasses. You're trying to improve your character. You're trying to beautify yourself. All these things, not because you hate yourself, but because you love yourself. You're trying to nurture yourself. You're trying to care for your body. And Jesus says that is exactly how you need to see your wife, husbands. She is the one that you love as your own body, as you love yourself. It's supposed to be something that is natural, that is instinctive, as much as you say, there's a stove that's hot, and we don't put our hand on it. Oh, I was a poisonous snake, and you run away. You don't say, oh, that's interesting. It's instinctive. It's just kind of a reflex thing, and you do it. And he says, like a reflex thing, and you do it. You love your wife as you love your own body. But I think this goes even deeper than that. Even deeper than that. It is as your own body because she is your body. The me has changed. Because she is your body. You see, he goes on to explain, it's the same way that we are Christ's body. It's not that He loves us as much as He loves Himself. It's deeper. We are His body. And husbands and wives are each other's body. And it's not that you lose your identity, but rather that you expand, you become even more. Again, think about a relationship with Christ. You are a new me, joined together like you are joined to Jesus. You don't stop losing, or you don't lose who you are. You become like Him. So much more. That's what a marriage is supposed to be. That's the simple principle. The me has changed in a marriage relationship. Now it's about nurturing and caring for her as it is for his physical, psychological, spiritual being. Because she is a part of me, because I am a part of her, even with her faults. Hey, I do it for me, I excuse my faults. And even with all of our imperfections, Jesus says, I love you. I embrace you as you are. The warmth of His love, the security of His power, because we are part of His body. Today we're asking and we're probing, exploring. I want to know what love is. Simply stated, it's like the love and concern you have for your own body because she is. Because He is. It's unconditional. It's not just if he or she is lovable or submissive. It's even if they don't deserve it. Because Jesus is your Lord. If you are a believer in Jesus, He set the pattern. He gave you the ability. See, it's not the duty of the wife to tell her husband, you got to love me. Nor is it the duty of the husband to say, and you got to respect me. In fact, it's not duty at all. It's supposed to be natural and instinctive, a part of your very nature, because Jesus is my Lord, and it's the life that He's given me. Listen to how He goes on to explain it. For this reason, a man will leave his father and mother and be united to his wife, and the two will become one flesh. This is a profound mystery. But I am talking about Christ and the church. However, each one of you also must love his wife as he loves himself, and the wife must respect her husband. It's a mystery. That doesn't mean it's unknown. It means it's now revealed. It is tremendous. It is profound. Jesus and me are a new one. Get that through our thick heads, and the way that we are bound to Jesus, the way that He is bound to me, is the same way that, in that real way, husbands and wives are a new one. That's why I'm compelled to love her. She's compelled to respect me. Because the two are one, glued, welded together in every way and in every part. No couple is exempt. You can't say, but you don't know our situation. You don't know what he's like. You don't know her. Okay, I don't. But nevertheless, God still says, because He's the one who knows, she is a part of you, you are a part of her. And it's not just because God created us for this, but because it is the way Jesus is. It's the way Jesus is. Now, if we got that principle, I want us to get practical here. I want us to know what love is, what the anatomy of love is. There are three things that make up the core of love in a marriage. And as I said, you're going to discover, when you stop and think about it, these three things are also at the very core of the relationship between Jesus and you. These three things define it, describe it, sum it up, really, I think, a lot of it. First, passion. Second, intimacy. Third, commitment. Let's look at them one at a time. Passion, intimacy, commitment. First, passion. Passion can be that spine-tingling sensation that moves us toward romance. It's Jesus who can be described as, for the joy set before Him, endured the cross. It can be seen and should be seen in our worship, where we just, get goosebumps when we really understand and see the wonder of His love and grace. See, it's that spine-tingling sensation, and because we are partly physical beings, it's also very much a part of our sensuality, our sexuality. But the problem is, that physical attraction has become the most important thing in the world that we live in. Billions of dollars are spent on it and made off of physical attraction. And sex outside of marriage has become so common, almost, when you step back and look at it, it's almost like an animal instinct, the way that the younger generations especially are being fed this diet and this whole idea, and mindset, hey, I got to breathe, so I'll suck air. I'm hungry, so I got to eat. I need exercise for my body, so I'll get out there and run. Hey, I got sexual desires, so hey, let's hook up. And because of that, no more than an animal instinct, it is so casual, it has lost its power. Passion has lost its power. It's no longer special. And when we bring just that, what we've been doing, the instinct into a marriage, it's damaged. It's already used material that we're bringing to the marriage. It's not special anymore. Some wait for their very first kiss. I remember how special my first kiss was. And by the way, it wasn't even my wife. And the generations that raised me, taught me, and modeled this, it needs to be special. And you might say, oh, you just bought into that. I didn't buy in to all the prudy stuff that sometimes goes with, any generation. But there was something there that caught my attention that said, yeah, it needs to be special. And so the first kiss and saying, I love you, it was going to be for the person that I knew, this is the one. And so it was reserved for her. And the passion stayed special, you see. Passion can be possessive. It can create a fascination bordering on an obsession, driving people to extreme preoccupation with how they look and all the money that they spend on that, and then a preoccupation with the passion in a relationship. Oh, she's my gal, nobody's going to touch her. Oh, he's my guy, and it's just a clutching and a clinging. See, pure passion by itself is always about taking, self-seeking, until it is linked with the second core truth, which is intimacy. Love without intimacy is only a hormonal illusion. Intimacy is knowing that person. It's the quality of best friend, of soulmate, kindred spirit. I think all of us want somebody who knows us better than anyone else and accepts us even though they know us. Who holds nothing back from us, who trusts us with even the little secrets, somebody who fills the deepest longings of our hearts for closeness and acceptance. This closeness, sharing, communication, honesty, support, that's what intimacy is. Intimacy is always threatened because it takes work and because it's risky. You are opening yourself up to somebody as you want them to open up to you. And because of that, if intimacy is left to itself, it will always wither away. And because of that, the lack of intimacy is the number one enemy in a marriage. That is the reason why marriages come apart. It's not because of money pressures. It's not because of the circumstances, not because of in-laws. It is because of the lack of intimacy. It is because over time you allow a wall that grows between you, and now there's a stranger on the other side with a wall that neither of you can scale. A loneliness and aloneness, even though you're under the same roof. That's why intimacy is so precious. But the third core is commitment. Commitment is an act of the will. It looks forward to a future that you can't see yet, but you promise, I will be there. I will be there for you until death. It creates, you see, that island of certainty in a whole world of uncertainty. It secures, it anchors love for your wife, for your husband. When even during times when your passion burns low, or when crises come hitting you left and right, and there's pressure, or there are these fierce impulses that can overtake you. You have that commitment that is the anchor. It says, I love you because of who you are, not because of what you do, not because of how I feel. When somebody says, I just don't love her anymore, or she says, I love him, but I'm not in love with him anymore. It's so easy to say, well, that relationship, that marriage is over, toss it out, it's done with, there's no hope. That's not true. That's not true. See, the problem is there's something in this trilogy of love that is missing, something in passion or intimacy or commitment, something that has changed. And the two are not defining love in the same way. She wants more sensuality. He wants more bonding and certainty. Or the other way around. He wants more sex. She wants more intimacy. It's not that there's no hope. It's that there needs to be a recognition that something is missing. And then together we are going to work on balance. You also need to understand that balance is not something that you suddenly get and never changes. The relationship of marriage changes over time. There are phases you go through. Again, I said it's like our relationship with Jesus. Anybody say, every time I pray, every time I go to the Word, oh, it is so wonderful and precious, I never have to work at it. I don't hear that. I don't see any hands right now saying, yeah, that's me. No, there are times when you say, I just got to do it, right? It's the same in a marriage relationship. You see, it's the same components, the same factors. At first, you enter into a relationship, just like a new believer enters that relationship with Jesus. At first, in a marriage, there's the romance, there's the honeymoon. There's the fun of finding new things out about the other person. I remember on our honeymoon, it was a trip up to British Columbia, and we had this special dinner. As a boy, I went camping, fishing, ate trout. I said, ooh, they got trout on the menu. This will be special, so I ordered the trout. And they bring this out. They brought my wife's dinner. They brought mine, and here on this plate is this whole trout laying on its side, nicely cooked, with its head and its eyes staring at my wife. And as soon as she saw that set down, she said, oh, you're going to eat that? I said, well, sure. No, you can't eat that. I thought, I'm not going without dinner. You can't eat that. It's staring right at me. And so I gathered up all the parsley I could find and made this mountain over its head so that I wasn't looking at her anymore. And we were laughing, we were carrying on, and we can still tell that story and just laugh. It's that discovery of new things about each other that is a part of that first phase. And then you come to the second phase of your relationship, however many years that may take. You come probably soon to a power struggle. Yeah, the porcupines learning to hug each other kind of thing. There are differences, and we discovered our differences. I'm clean, she's cluttered. Early on, I wanted to stay home. She wanted to go out. Also early on, she would come home after doing grocery shopping, and I'd look at the checkbook and I'd see how much was spent. I said, you got to be kidding me. You got to be kidding me. You're just throwing money around. You're buying stuff that we don't really need. It's like, what, you're just tossing money in the gutter? I didn't quite say it that bad, but it was pretty strong. It was pretty strong. And so this is what she said. Next time, come shopping with me. So I did. So I'm driving the cart, and she's looking at something over here, and I see something over here, and I grab off the show. I said, wait a minute, she says. How much does that cost? I look at it. Whoa. And she said, do we really? I don't think we need that. So she picked something else. I look at that, and I said, well, that's better. So we went through this whole process, and I realized how much things cost. I didn't before. Thankfully, it only took the one trip, and I learned my lesson. And I said, Neve, I can trust you with shopping. Go for it. But it's that kind of phase you go through, differences, power struggles. And then the third phase is cooperation. In cooperation, you start to learn to come together. You start to learn to, the porcupine hug. You're developing an intimacy to a way where you're sharing. We had problems with my mom. Many of you, I know, have problems with mothers or mother-in-laws. My mom and dad came up to visit us one time when we were fairly newly married, and maybe about 5 years, I guess it was. And my mom started reorganizing the kitchen. And my wife was cooking dinner, and she said, "Don't use that. Use this over here. Here, let me show you how to do it." Just kind of. Now, we had a bit of a history. My mom really didn't like my wife. Now, my nature, and after all, she's my mom, right? Right, guys? So I said, well, we'll just survive this until she's gone. We'll have to live with it. No, couldn't do that. And thankfully, my wife said, we got to cooperate on this. So I remember even where I was standing in the living room, and I took my mom, held her by the shoulders, and I said, you are causing me to make a choice between you or my wife. I need to tell you, the choice has already been made. It is my wife, we are one, and if you persist to act like this, then you are not welcome in our home, and you must leave and not come back until you're willing to change. I had never spoken to my mom that way. And my mom said, okay. And my wife said, oh, I love you. Cooperation. And I also learned about that same stage of our marriage to listen to her feelings and accept those and not just solve problems. In fact, I have a phrase that developed out of a very hard confrontation. Your feelings are just as true as the facts. Now, you may think that sounds crazy, but for us, it was right. They were just as true as the facts. They are facts, too. And then there's the next phase you can move into of mutuality, where you're feeling at one, where there's a secure sense of belonging. Where she starts something and I will complete the sentence. Or I say, where is the... And she goes and gets it before I can even tell her what it is. And the things that we like are more similar, so it's not always she goes out, wants to go out and we socialize, and I want to stay home. Now we say, we do the same things now. It's a beautiful thing. And then there's even a fifth stage of life, of marriage, a co-creativity, where it's not just that you are made for each other, but that the two of you together realize we are here in this world for a purpose, and we can serve, we can care, we can minister outside of us even more meaningfully in interrelationships, and you explore that. But you see, in all of these stages, and at any stage, you need to cultivate love. You need to cultivate love. It doesn't happen by accident. It takes work, it takes risk, and it cannot stop or else it will wither. But it is worth it. Neva and I will tell you it is worth it. I know many of you whose marriages I've come to know, you can say, yes, it's worth it. So how do you cultivate love? Well, first, how do you cultivate passion? Here's some ideas. Cultivate passion by practicing meaningful touch. Maybe holding hands as you're walking. Neva and I end up doing this, even going through grocery stores, shopping, or walking through a park or something. We're just holding hands. And I don't even know how many times people have come up to me, and it's usually older people. They're saying, oh, that is so precious. I said, what? You're holding hands. Oh, we are, yeah. It's just a natural thing that we do, but it is part of the language of passion. Or maybe it's sitting close on the couch, and yeah, we get really close, and we always kiss each other goodbye, unless it's very, very unusual circumstances, a crisis going on or something. Even then, most of the times, before we part, before we leave, it's always a kiss. It's the language of passion. Meaningful touch. Another way, plan mutually enjoyable experiences. Dates, or maybe that's romantic dinners. You got to schedule these things because life is so busy. Romantic dinners, trips to the theater, vacations. Neva and I have put on our calendar, because we have to, there's no other way to do it, put on our calendar, once each season we try to go up to Longwood Gardens, just because it is an experience that we enjoy. See, you need to build a catalog of those things in your relationship so that he, so that she does not always associate you when they see you primarily with dirty underwear dropped on the floor, barked orders, crying or nagging. They need to think of, remember when we... A third thing, cultivate passion by complimenting your partner daily. Make them feel special, appreciated. Don't be phony about this. They'll be able to pick up phoniness. But the compliment, I try, but Neva is so much better at that than I. I'll get a text, and it just says, capital letters, a lot of exclamation points, I love you. The thank yous that we share with each other for simple things. The notes are the special cards that you get for no special reason. I have on my desk 2 cards that have been there probably for a couple years, and I'll add them, I'll change them out. But these 2 cards say, I love you, I'm thinking of you, you're my best friend. And it's just always there right in front of me. Cultivate intimacy. You're going to have to spend time together to cultivate intimacy. And maybe you're saying, well, that's our problem. I don't have the space, the time. You can make it. You have to make it. You have to. Surveys have been done. Who do you turn to most often to confide in? Who do you go to share your dreams or ambitions? Most of the times it's friends. Few times it's family. Rarely it's a husband or wife. It needs to be first a husband and the wife, because remember the principle, you are the new me. You are one. So spend time together. When the boys were young and life seemed like a chaotic crisis, one right after the other, and when we were caring for both my folks and then later Neva's dad at home, which were tremendous experiences in themselves, but they make life so busy. So we would schedule after dinner walks. We'd just get out of the house, walk around the house, walk down the street or across the field, and just talk and just share about the day and pray a little bit as we're walking back, you know. We would put on the calendar coffee at Denny's before I had to go to work and she went this way. The kids were off to school. You know what our dates are right now, our time together? Costco trips. You might think that's crazy, but hey, spending time together. Could easily say, well, I got to buy this, go get it. Can I come with you? Yeah, sure, come on. And just to spend that time together. You have to cultivate intimacy. It takes work. Then there's also listening with a third ear. We all tend to interrupt. We all tend to be impatient. We all tend to plan what we're about to say and don't pay attention to what she or he is saying. Instead, with a third ear, this picture of really listening. Listen to the feelings and not just the story. Guys, particularly, ask questions, don't give answers. And as you ask the questions, you're probing deeper. What did you really mean by that? How did you feel about that? And let her do that for you as well. And give an answer. Listen with a third ear. Next suggestion, practice unconditional acceptance. Unconditional acceptance, where there is no fear of rejection, where there is trust, and you're not afraid that you're going to say something or do something that's going to hit the trigger and they're going to blow up. One of the things you really need to do is stop looking for all the things that are wrong, all the things they have done wrong, all the things that are wrong about them. You'll know you're doing this when it's just like you, so quickly, so easily, the tape is played in your mind. Oh, yes, yes, oh, that's, and you grumble. And maybe you're saying, I'm not grumbling and complaining. Yeah, but you can still go through a list. You can still go through a mental list of the things that are wrong. Even when you find something wrong, shut your mouth until you learn to build trust and how to say it. Instead, focus on commonalities. Focus on the things that are right. There's always going to be differences in your relationship. It doesn't matter how long you've been married. She snores, I don't. At least I don't admit it. And differences. She likes the Gaithers, I like Rachmaninoff. But you talk to us, and this is what we're going to say. This is what we would say. We, just because it's a part of us, we love Stephen Curtis Chapman. We love to tour model homes. We like working in the garden. We like visiting gardens. We really enjoy taking long drives together in an afternoon with the top down. We really enjoy hearing missionary stories and visiting with missionaries. We always have. It's just they're the things we discovered, we've learned that we have in common, or new things that we have developed in common. Focus on the commonalities. And then finally, with intimacy, explore the spiritual terrain together. Pray for each other. Listen to Christian music, or just something that feeds the soul, insights from God's Word. I mean, enjoy testimonies of what God is doing. Getting involved in serving other people together. Many times on our long trips, in fact, what we've done is we tried to see how many songs or how many verses we could come up with from memory. We go back and forth, you know, it's kind of like a verse off to see who could do the most kind of things. Sometimes it didn't last very long, and we say, ooh, got to work on that one. But the point is, it's exploring spiritual terrain together. And then finally, cultivate commitment. Start by assessing the high value of commitment. You say, you have to know, you have to believe, you have to be convinced. It is crucial. It is crucial. And make a determination that it will persist. Your commitment will persist. And that divorce is a word that will never come into an argument or a conversation. It will never be a thought that you entertain in your mind. Cultivate commitment also by meeting your partner's needs. You give security by meeting as many needs of their day-to-day life that you can. Maybe they need to unwind at work. Give them that time and space. They need a good meal. Give them that. They need a thank you for the meal. Give them that. One night out a week. Allow that. Make it possible. Even provide for it. Or space for a hobby, recreation. Because as you're making room, as you're doing something for their day-to-day needs, you're giving them security that you got my back. Honor your partner's promise. Oh, we could be so focused on how much we've invested into a marriage, how much I have committed myself, how much I have given of myself. And you forget the beauty of your spouse's promise to you. Neva didn't know that I did these things until she was in the first service, I'm sure. She heard me say this. But the other day, we have a lot of family pictures around the house. And the other day she was sorting through some stuff, and she had laid out on the table some pictures of when she was just a little kid. I'm looking at those pictures. She was in the other room. I'm looking at those pictures. And it just overwhelmed me. When those pictures were taken, she didn't even know I existed in this world. And yet she chose me. When we're sitting together in the living room, and again, she didn't maybe know this, but I look at her hands, I look at the side of her face, I look at her feet even. And I'm thinking, she belongs to me. And this belongs to her. And I am overwhelmed. She chose me. She could have chosen another, but she chose me. She made that promise. She made that commitment. Focus on your spouse's commitment. Maybe if you don't see it much reflected in their life, it was there. Next week we're going to talk about the attitude and the attitudes that are shaped when trust is broken even. But the final thing I want to say about cultivating commitment is to make it a part of your being. Make it a part of your being. I can be trusted. I keep my word. This is who I am. I am faithful because Jesus is faithful. Friends, this is what love is. You and her, you're one. The pilot has been lit. Pour the fuel on that. Because as I said, all three parts of love describe perfectly the relationship Jesus has with you. He is passionate about you. He would rather die than let you go. It was the joy set before him. That's why he endured the cross. You were that joy. His intimacy with you. His intimacy that says, I am in you, you are in me, now you abide in me. We are friends. And I know you so thoroughly and love you so deeply. And then there's his commitment. No, never will I leave you. Never will I forsake you. And so, believer in Jesus, it is because of him that you give yourself wholeheartedly to cultivating that passion and that intimacy and that commitment in your marriage. If you were to ask Jesus, looking at me, you think it was worth it? He would say, oh, yes. Look at your husband, look at your wife, and say, yeah, this will be worth it too, because of Jesus.